It was the summer of 1985, and Rosa Walker had last spoken to her daughter, 27-year-old Carolyn Brown, and her family on July 4th. It was now August, and she hadn't heard from them in over a month. That was very unusual because Rosa, who lived about 5 hours away from the family in Tallahassee, spoke with her daughter at least once per week. Figuring she had waited long enough since the calls suddenly stopped, Rosa made a police report. The worried woman also mentioned her grandchildren, 10-year-old Chiquita Brown, 6-year-old Barry Brown, and 2-year-old Brandon Brown, who all celebrated their birthdays in December. What officers found at the Browns' residence was quite baffling. It was as though they'd all stopped their lives and vanished. Reports indicated that it didn't seem any of their clothes had been taken. Carolyn's purse was found in a corner of the garage with all of her IDs cut into pieces, and there was an uneaten meal sitting on the stove and on the dining room table. A room also appeared to have been recently painted, but given all of this, there were no signs of a struggle having taken place. This led police to be initially reluctant to treat their disappearance as missing persons cases. Carolyn and her husband, then 35-year-old James Michael, were both employed as teachers. In 1984, James was suspended from his teaching job at Lincoln Park Middle School after reportedly pleading no contest to charges accusing him of injuring Chiquita with a leather strap until she had welts and bruises because she spent 10 cents of her lunch money on a pencil at school. He had received 3 years of probation, allegedly had his teaching license revoked, and began working as a 4-H counselor. Reports indicated he was also abusive to Carolyn, and she would often stay at their church with the children. Nevertheless, James was also expected to return to school, but when fall rolled around, neither of them showed up. It was then that authorities began to believe that a crime may have been committed and the family was regarded as officially missing. An investigation was launched, and authorities realized the family hadn't been heard from since sometime in mid-July of 1985. Later, James began making phone calls to friends and relatives. He was said to have contacted Carolyn's sister to let her know that if she wanted, she could have everything from the family's home. When asked about the family's whereabouts, he reportedly told her that they were, quote, out there, but did not specify what that meant. A friend of James also told authorities that the man called her and said he was employed overseas and had Barry and Brandon with him. The friend claimed to question James about Carolyn and Chiquita, but said the man did not give a clear answer about their whereabouts. The only other thing he said was that he had to leave urgently. One of the family's vehicles was located at an auto repair shop. However, it does not appear that as of this video, the other vehicle, a 1981 blue 4-door Buick Skylark, has ever been found. Remember the freshly painted room that police came across when they first searched the home? Detectives later discovered that the paint actually covered up areas of blood splatter. Weeks after his family went missing, James was located at a hospital in Savannah, Georgia. He had admitted himself under the name Demetrius Jones after suffering a discharge wound to the head. The man claimed that someone had robbed and injured him. Eventually, the staff discovered his true identity. James confessed that he'd unalived his family and attempted to do the same to himself. According to him, it was July 14, 1985, and Carolyn was sleeping with 2-year-old Brandon beside her. He unalived her using a firearm prior to obstructing his son's breathing with a pillow. James alleged that he traveled to Palm Beach County and got rid of their bodies. 3 days later was when he said he took Chiquita and Barry to Brunswick, Georgia, and unalived them along Interstate 95. He said he wounded Chiquita in her face and Barry in his head, and he left them somewhere along that same highway. Several court-appointed mental health professionals diagnosed James as a paranoid schizophrenic. He stated he heard voices and saw visions. He was never charged in the disappearances of Brandon and Barry because authorities were not sure where the fatalities occurred. To this day, they believe that he lied about where he left them, as extensive searches of the areas have proven fruitless. Brown was jailed in Savannah after police accused him of fabricating the robbery complaint and charged him with filing a false report. The man pleaded guilty to that charge and was sentenced to time served. James was immediately extradited back to Florida. When I say hey y'all, it never sounds right. In my culture, or specifically my island's dialect, we don't say y'all or you all. We say are you, as in all of you. I don't want are you to be confused when I say it, but let's make it our thing too. So hey are you, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you have not already, and give this video a thumbs up. Now let's get back into the video. An order held without bond in the cases of his missing family members. Sometime before his trial, Brown recanted his confession. In late 1985, James was tried for Carolyn and Chiquita's fatalities, but he was ultimately acquitted on grounds of insanity. The man was committed to a Florida mental health facility following the court's decision. In 1996, James was moved to a halfway house and released from the program in 1997. 8 years later, he was imprisoned after he threatened to unalive a bank clerk during a robbery. Sadly, Carolyn, Chiquita, Barry, and Brandon Brown remain missing persons, and to this day, no one besides James really knows for sure what happened to them. Anyone with information about this case is urged to contact the Florida Department of Law Enforcement at 888-356-4774 or the Port St. Lucie Police Department at 772-871-5001. Their families and friends deserve closure, and if they are indeed gone, they deserve a proper burial. May the family and friends of Carolyn, Chiquita, Barry, and Brandon Brown find solace in the happy memories, and if they are indeed gone, may their souls rest in perpetual peace. Thank you.